What's going on, team? We are in the home stretch of not only Big Ten play, but like this season as a whole. March is here. The players get physical and get chippy. Hopefully we can keep things at bay here on Go Big or Go Home. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Zora Stephenson, Meghan McKeown, Robbie Hummel. Let's do the collective. Go big.
Go home.
Okay, everybody is on board this morning. Love to see it. Okay, let's talk regular season titles. Purdue has already clinched part of it. They could clinch the whole thing if they win against Illinois. On the women's side, Ohio State is the Big Ten regular season champion. Robbie, first off, Purdue, Illinois, that matchup, and then Purdue and clinching a share of it, and then the greater thought on a conference regular season championship. Does it matter? Does it not?
Yeah, no, I think it totally matters, and it's kind of gotten lost on maybe some fans, especially as we realign and we bring some new teams in. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But there's so many good players. And I've always thought of this. There's so many good players who have played in the Big Ten and cannot say that they are a Big Ten champion, whether that's from the tournament side of things or that's the regular season side of things. It is hard over a now 20-game schedule to be the top dog. And I think for Purdue to go back-to-back, it speaks to what Matt Painter has built. It speaks to what those guys on the team the last 2 years have accomplished. And look, their season is going to be defined, unfortunately, by what they do in the NCAA tournament. But it's a heck of an accomplishment. A banner goes up, you get a ring. It's a pretty special deal. And I hope that fans at Purdue understand just how special that is. Massive game, though. Huge game for Illinois. The Illini defense is going to have to be a little bit better than what we have seen to handle Zach Edey. They can really, really score, though. And that's going to be must-see TV on Tuesday. It's a game on Peacock. And I can't wait to see it. Illinois has so much to play for. To get a share with as good as Purdue has been this year would be a massive achievement for a team that has certainly been through a lot and certainly had the Terrence Shannon suspension and had to deal with that. And now he's back playing, and he has played since he's been back like a first-team All-Big Ten or even a first-team All-American level player. It's going to be a battle, and it should be a heck of a game on Tuesday night.
I hate to put value on things when both are admirable, but bigger deal, Big Ten regular season championship or tournament championship? Robbie?
I think the bigger deal is the regular season title, but I was fortunate enough to win a conference tournament championship when I was in college. And I will say those 3 days are as fun as any 3-day period as I had in college. So I look at both, and I know some people think, well, the conference tournaments are dumb for the high majors because really, you look at what happens at the low major and the mid-major level, like those teams are playing for everything. Yeah. But I do place value on, man, if you can beat the best teams in your league over 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, depending on where you start as a seed, I think it's pretty awesome. It's a winner-take-all type deal, and when you get to accomplish that, it's a special feeling as well.
Well, yeah, and it's a great warm-up for what's to come. Okay, yeah, maybe you've already solidified your spot in the tournament, but, like, can you perform under pressure? And it's just one game. You don't have a season series. You're most of the time at a neutral site, right? Like it's a great indicator of where you're at in terms of tournament style play. Meghan, regular season champs on the women's side, Ohio State. Did you see this? Like, how has this team progressed as the season went on? And how is your thought process different on the Buckeyes now as to a couple months ago when we were talking about previewing everything?
In October, on paper, Ohio State was the best team in this league from the standpoint of getting Celeste Taylor in from Duke, who was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Cody McMahon was coming off a great freshman campaign where she was Freshman of the Year. JC Sheldon was coming back. Taylor Theory was back. I mean, they returned almost everybody. And it took a while for them to mesh and find chemistry. And we're seeing this all over the country on both the men's and the women's side. With the portal being how it is, you're bringing in so many new pieces. And even if it's only one player, in the example of Ohio State, Celeste Taylor came into a starting role in a huge, huge position. So it took some time for everybody to figure out what she was trying to do, what she was trying to figure out what everybody else was trying to do. And it just takes time. The only way you can figure it out is by going through games and reps together. And so you want to be playing your best basketball headed into March. That's where Ohio State is. They fall on the road to Iowa. By all means, not a bad loss. That is certainly probably the hardest place to play in the Big Ten on the women's side at Carver Hawkeye Arena. It was Caitlin Clark's senior day. She wasn't going to lose on her senior day. I don't think anyone was going to allow that to happen. So that being said, the Buckeyes still, though, from top to bottom, having the most depth in the Big Ten. And to me, they're a team that's well equipped to win the whole tournament.
So that was my follow-up question. Is Ohio State your favorite to win the Big Ten tournament?
Yes, I would say so. Right now, just they're playing so well. They have so much confidence, and that depth piece is huge over the course of trying to win games in 3 days. Going to be massive down the stretch.
You brought up Caitlin Clark's senior day. Can we talk about the scene? And Robbie, speak to this as well. Can we talk about the scene at Carver Hawkeye Arena yesterday? Just the entire day. The fact that Maya Moore showed up, Travis Scott was there. That was the friendship that we never knew existed. She said Caitlin Clark is one of my favorite humans. Lynette Woodard, the Hawkeyes brought in the all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball before, of course, Caitlin Clark broke every record. Let's just talk about that day. As a fan of basketball, to have all that going on and then the Hawkeyes still to perform like they did. What did you see at Carver Hawkeye yesterday? What did you think?
Caitlin Clark has dealt with so many outside distractions this whole entire season. I mean, it starts with the State Farm commercial that hit airwaves at the beginning of the year, the Gatorade deal, the Nike deal, all the things she has had to deal with so much, and yet she still finds the ability to focus and get the job done on the floor. She's a true pro in the sense of being able to compartmentalize and put what's important first. And she has been the most consistent player in college basketball. But the scene, I mean, it was so cool. First off, to her reaction to seeing Maya Moore, she's been talking about her favorite player forever. She screamed, and it was so cool and such a human moment. I think a lot of people look at Caitlin Clark kind of as a non-human and just as this prolific figure. To see her have that reaction to Maya Moore, I thought was really cool. And few people appreciate women's basketball the way Caitlin Clark does, and she understands the history of it. And so she appreciates the Lynette Woodards of the world and the Maya Moores and all of that comes with it. So cool that people are taking such notice of women's basketball right now. It's grown a ton. And a lot of that is thanks to Caitlin Clark, but also across the league. This is a really good product you're seeing right now.
The all-time leading scorer in college basketball, period. We're not talking male or female anymore. We can continue to add on to all the accomplishments. I thought the Nike ad was so poignant. It was okay, just everything. There's not enough pages to list all that Caitlin Clark has done and will continue to do. She's announced that she's going to the WNBA. Robbie, your initial thoughts on that decision?
Well, I kind of feel like she's probably accomplished everything she can at the collegiate level. And, there's something to be said about coming back for a 5th year and just making these numbers untouchable. But they probably already are. And I think there's something cool about the fact that you do this record in only 4 years. You do it in the normal time span. And we've talked about how, the 1,000-point scorers, that was always the benchmark for how good you were as a college player. Well, that's kind of been skewed because you have a lot of people that played 5 seasons now. And a lot of the records that we have been skewed. So I think that maybe comes into it. Unfortunately, we had some people in the media have some stupid takes about her taking a pay cut, man. So her national endorsements are going to go away. She's not going to have State Farm. She's not going to have Gatorade. She's not going to have Nike. That's not going anywhere. It's a terrible take. And I think that she's just ready as a competitor to take herself to the highest level and prove herself there. She's proven everything she can at this stage in her career. She's taken an Iowa team that had good players, but not UConn level talent or Stanford back when we were playing level talent or Notre Dame level talent from when we were in college. They're a good team, but she's elevated them to the national championship game. Hopefully she can make a run here and in her, you could call it last dance, but bigger and better things await her. And I think that's probably the way she's looking at it.
I think we're all on the same side here with this discussion. Meghan, you go ahead and answer the WNBA. I already know how you feel about it. I think we feel the same way. And then if you can, as someone who has covered Caitlin Clark from the very beginning, few people have. A lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon when they started to hear the name, but you've been in the trenches. So I just want to hear your take on her career so far. But first, the WNBA thoughts.
It was the right decision for her to go to the WNBA. She's, like, to what Robbie's point, she's achieved all she can at the college level. She got to a national title game. They probably don't have all the pieces right now. Tough injury with Molly Davis on senior day. We don't know what her status is going to be. It did not look good. And especially you take her out of the picture, then I think it's really hard for this team to get back to the national championship. But she's set every single record in 4 years. Will be no asterisk next to her name regarding, 5 or 6 years or whatever now people are doing. And I think also a part of her is probably just ready to go on to the next thing. As cool as it's been to sell out all these arenas, I would imagine there's a very big burden put on you when you constantly have to show up and entertain thousands and thousands and thousands of people at the college level. For her to have 2 security guards with her at all times, for her to really not be able to go anywhere without being recognized. I mean, this is pro level stuff that we see a lot in the professional level, but she's dealing with it at college. So I think it's time for her to kind of move on, go to the next level, and be challenged at a higher level. It's going to be really good for her. I'm excited to see what she does in the W. Fever tickets, I believe, are already sold out, something like that, because they have the first pick in the draft. So that's going to be interesting. And just really cool to see the excitement hopefully carry over from the college level to the WNBA, which is a fantastic product as well. And as for the scoring record, I did giggle because we talked about this before she broke the women's record in the NCAA. We were like, we hope she doesn't do it on a free throw. And she broke the record on a flagrant foul free throw. So a little anticlimactic, but nonetheless, incredible feat. I don't care if Pistol Pete did it in 3 years with no 3-point line. Like, come on.
Also, he shot 39 times a game.
I mean,
that has to be taken into account.
Like 3,600 points is 3,600 points. Like, come on. I don't care if you're in the rec league at the YMCA or in the NCAA. It's still an incredible accomplishment.
Nobody's come close for a reason, right? And I love what Lynette Woodard said. She's like, Caitlin Clark is not done yet. Like, she's going to make that record unobtainable for quite some time. Although I think a young woman in Southern California named Juju Watkins probably has something to say about that, but can't wait to see how her career unfolds. Meghan, we're about to give the entire floor to you, though.
Oh, no.
As we lead up to the Big Ten women's tournament. It starts on Wednesday. We've got the first slate of games, 2 different matchups on Wednesday. If you want to make it all the way and you're starting on Wednesday, that is 5 games in 5 days. No one has ever done it. When you look at this bracket, I'm just talking about the entire thing. Break down what you see for me.
It's a lot of games. But in all seriousness, it's going to be interesting. There was so much movement as of like 8 o'clock Sunday night before the tournament. Like, Purdue could have been I think 10. They got switched over. That Illinois-Maryland matchup's going to be interesting. Illinois had a massive win over Nebraska this weekend, and they're starting to play really good basketball. They have underachieved, and they've been really inconsistent. But when they're good, like, they're a very dangerous team. And Maryland still has some NCAA tournament hopes, so that'll be interesting. Wisconsin beat Penn State already this year, and Sarah Williams, I think, should be the Defensive Player of the Year. That all gets announced this week, so that's going to be fascinating. Iowa, you might as well just kind of put them through to the semifinals because they are going to travel really well, and that's practically going to be a home game for them. It was last season. And I think an Indiana-Iowa potential matchup in the semis is going to be a blast. I mean, that could be if they split in the regular season. Mackenzie Holmes went down in the game this weekend with a knee injury, so hopefully she's okay. She was able to jog back out there, but no update on her status. So we'll TBD on that. But Michigan State, Nebraska, those 2 teams maybe having a shot at Ohio State would be really interesting. It's going to be great. Every single matchup is interesting. Everybody's beating everybody this year. There's like no guarantees. So, I mean, it's sold out for the first time ever. The whole tournament is. Catch it all over on Peacock via the first 2 rounds. It's going to be a blast. Or the first day, first 2 games. It'll be a blast.
What do you think of the games we have on that first day? I know it's like a long shot, right? But like you just want to stay alive as long as you can. So let's
yeah,
start
I mean, you never want to have to play on the first day, but like, Northwestern, Purdue will be interesting. Purdue won that first matchup, but now Purdue's without Caitlin Harper. So how does that change the matchup? Northwestern probably played its best game of the year against Rutgers this weekend, so they have some confidence. Minnesota, unfortunately, has kind of started to fall, even though they're the host state, technically, but they've kind of fallen off after dealing with some injuries, Sophie Hart and Mara Braun. And Rutgers has also dealt with some injuries as well, so that could be really interesting to see who moves forward with that. But, you never know. Those first games are going to probably be really close. They were last year.
Well, and the good thing about tournament time in March, and Rob, that it's a clean slate. Like, okay, yeah, you're playing on the first day and you're at the bottom part of the conference, but there's a conference tournament for a reason. Everyone gets a clean slate, and it doesn't really matter what happened before. It just happens how you perform that day. Like, what needs to be mustered up? Specifically, yeah, maybe like those Wednesday teams, but even like, the teams that are playing on Thursday, that's a hard gauntlet run as well.
Yeah, four games, five games in 5 days, whatever you've got, that's a lot. I think my big takeaway from that bracket is that me and Megan need to make a bet.
I know, right?
Grudge match here. Lunch has got to be put on the on the docket. Loser buys.
There we go.
But yeah, I think you just have to take it one game at a time. You've got to handle what's in front of you before you can look ahead, and that can be easier said than done, especially for teams that are on the bubble. Megan mentioned the Maryland women, or you look at maybe the Iowa men, who those two teams are going to have a lot to play for. And if Iowa can somehow find a way to beat Illinois last game of the season, then all of a sudden I think that you're looking at a legitimate team that's maybe a team or two on the right side or the wrong side of the bubble. So you just got to look at what's in front of you. And I think there's always an anticipation of like, you understand how good this can be if you can make a run. And that's the beauty, I think, of the Big Ten tournament, because it is an awesome feeling to get to do that.
Yeah.
But it's always the best time of the year. I'm biased because I think my birthday is coming up. So I was always like, yeah, March is great for that. But then the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten tournament, there's a lot of cool things that are happening on a personal and also a basketball level in this month.
You could start to feel like the Ides of March coming through in the games, both on the men and women's side this weekend. It just got me excited for what's to come. Let's leave the folks. They've got enough games to watch, but if they're ever home and they need some games to play, let's give them our picks here. Growing up and still to this day, Uno is the number one, and you can change the rules. You can do it however you want. Uno is the best game out there. Your thoughts, Robbie?
So I've got two that I would say. One of them is like a very well-known game, and one of them is not.
Okay.
The well-known game is the game of life. I loved playing life growing up, except I was a very sore loser if I didn't get a good career. So if I didn't get doctor, lawyer, athlete, or rock star, I would be not the best player to play with as a young child. But I do like the game. I haven't had it on my phone for a while. I really like playing life. It's a fun game. And then there's a game called Rat-a-Tat-Cat, which you've probably never heard of. My grandma found it at a random game store, and we always played it at the lake. And it's a very simple game. You get 4 cards. You can look at the outside 2. You don't know the inside 2. And basically everyone draws, and you go in a circle, and you've got to assemble the best hand. But since you don't know the 2 middle cards, it can be challenging. And my dad always had the strategy of like, he's just going to knock early and roll the dice. You can also draw cards where you swap, so you have to pay attention to what other people are drawing. Pretty fun game, really simple game, but I always think of playing that with my grandma, my parents, and my brother and my cousins.
There's nothing like memories like that, and I think it connects us to games like this. Megan, you go ahead.
Loved Uno growing up as well, but my 2 favorite games of all time, in order, at number 2, Yahtzee.
Love Yahtzee.
Big Yahtzee fan. Again, memories of playing it at the lake with my family. And then at number 1, Clue. Best game ever. Could play it. Actually, I have it sitting over there on my coffee table. I love Clue. It is a blast.
A thinker game. We appreciate it.
Thinker game. Yeah, Colonel Mustard. It's how I learned to pronounce Colonel, C-O-L-N-E-L.
Yeah.
Colonel.
Yeah, not Colonel.
Yeah. I just think of like a popcorn kernel, and it helps me. You know, the English language is tough. We have so much more to talk about next week when we'll give Robbie the floor to give us a preview of the men's tournament, which will also be in Minneapolis, but ladies first, as it should be. So we'll see what goes down in Minnie, and we'll recap everything in a couple days.
Go big or go home.